A great philosopher once wrote that those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. History plays an important part in our lives because knowing about our past helps us better prepare for the future. The district shares that same philosophy. While our hot desert home hasn't seen a lot of rain this last year, our most recent storms are an impressive reminder that flooding can still happen. Being proactive is the best way to prepare for these historic storms. Hello, I'm Betty Hollister, Public Information Manager with the Regional Flood Control District, and welcome to another edition of the Flood Channel. On today's program, we'll take you to our annual Flood Safety News Conference that not only kicks off flash flood season, but spotlights the dedication of the Tropicana and Flamingo Washes Project. Then we'll hear about some personal experiences with flooding from the people who represent you in Washington, D.C. From there, we'll announce this year's license plate billboard contest winners and show how successful the contest has been at communicating the importance of flood safety to Southern Nevada residents. And finally, we'll share some of the history of the Valley's newest attraction, the Springs Preserve, where you can experience the force of a flash flood without ever getting wet. All that on our Flood 101 coming up on this historical edition of the Flood Channel. The desert we live in is an environment of extremes. During the hot summer months, moist, unstable air from the Gulf of Mexico is rapidly forced upward by hot air currents, which can result in spectacular displays of lightning, but also intense heavy rain, damaging storms, and flash flooding. It could happen just like that. So what does that mean for you and your family, and how can you be prepared if faced with a flash flood emergency? The district held its annual news conference to kick off flash flood season and explain why that summer rain can be so dangerous. In addition to communicating the importance of being flood safe and kicking off the annual license plate billboard contest, the district's news conference was the perfect venue to celebrate the completion of a 20-year project aimed at protecting the citizens of Clark County.
Well, each year we have the press conference to announce flash flood season, but today is also an indication of why this district, this public agency, has been so successful, and that's because of the people that are here. We had representatives from our congressional delegation, we had our member agencies represented, we had the Corps of Engineers, we had Metro, all the public works. That team approach to flood control has been the reason, probably the most important reason, this agency has been so successful.
This has been a 20-year partnership with the Flood Control District, Clark County, and the federal government, and especially the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. With the completion of this project, the Tropicana Flamingo Washes project, we were successful in removing 19 square miles of federally identified flood zones.
It's a huge project. I wish that Commissioner Woodbury could be here with us today. I can tell you the project, it would not have happened without a concerted effort of Commissioner Woodbury, our state legislators, and particularly Senator Harry Reid, who was with us all along the way in this lengthy process and kept those appropriations coming so we could build this project to protect the residents of Clark County.
In the early 60s, when my family first moved to town and there was indiscriminate flooding, people didn't appreciate and still don't, especially if you've moved to Las Vegas in the last few years, where when we've been in the middle of a drought, how quickly we can go from being bone dry to flooding, and it can happen in an instant. And people don't realize that you've got to take precautions.
The project collects water from 174 square miles. From West Charleston, the northern part of the project is the Red Rock Detention Basin, all the way down to Blue Diamond Highway and the Blue Diamond Detention Basin. Both those collect water that direct it through the urban area in a non-damaging rate and ultimately get to the Tropicana detention basin located north of 215 near Decatur. All that water then gets discharged into the Tropicana Wash and finds its way to Lake Mead.
A couple impressive things that we'll just touch on. Certainly our delegation, and it's amazing after all these years they can still drive hundreds of millions of dollars this way and convince their colleagues back in DC that flooding is an issue in the most arid part of our country. And also impressive is the consolidation, the regional approach to flood control. And we are oft criticized at the local level for the disagreements we have between cities and city and county and just about anybody you can throw into that mix. But this agency is a great example of how we all can work together. We lose jurisdictional boundaries when we address flood control, and it's a pleasure as an elected official to be on these type boards where politics are set aside and policy drives 99% of our activities. It's wonderful.
It's an example of cooperation, unlike anywhere in the country. It was very unique to have all these local governments in Southern Nevada work together because literally they were an island and they had a dream, they had a vision. And they knew that someday we would be standing out here on the side of this mountain looking down at the valley. Because every drop of water that hits this spot at one point in time could have hit the Strip or gone into Lake Mead. So I applaud the county, the cities, of course the flood control district.
Just very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that we as your Army Corps of Engineers are nothing if we are not in your service. And I would like to say humbly on behalf of all the folks in the LA District and by extension the 35,000 employees in the Corps of Engineers that they represent, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to serve you. And we are only as good as you all ask us to be, and you have asked us to be real good, and hopefully we passed muster. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for the opportunity to serve you.
To celebrate the dedication of the Tropicana and Flamingo Washes project and to help spread the word about flood safety, Metro Search and Rescue demonstrated exactly what is involved in a helicopter swift water rescue.
Floodwater operations are extremely dangerous for us. We do about 200 or so rescue operations every year throughout Clark County in southern Nevada. Without a doubt, floodwater rescue operations are the most dangerous thing that we do. And that's why it's so important for us that all the messages of prevention come out. What we're going to do today is have my partner, Dave Van Buskirk, stand on the roof of his vehicle, simulate that his vehicle is trapped in floodwaters and he's escaped to the roof to try and stay out of the water. We'll have our helicopter lift off. It'll orbit to assess the situation like we will do. They'll come in, hover over our simulated victim and perform a hoist operation. Officer Gary Sumption will be our rescuer today. He will lower down on the hoist, secure Officer Van Buskirk, our victim, raise them back up into the Huey, and take them to safety.
And now, perhaps the most impressive thing about this annual event and throughout the year is the fact that a public agency and the local media can get along. This is an amazing thing when the Fourth Estate actually partners with local government to do this wonderful thing. And I say that the folks behind the cameras, the reporters, and certainly to the weather teams back at the stations, you have been a great partner. When it comes to flood control, the success we've had not only with our campaign but our public education and our outreach is largely responsible to your support. I mean that sincerely. Not only this event, but throughout the year, you have tied in this whole flood awareness campaign to your daily broadcasts. And it does make a difference. It makes a tremendous difference because you have a lot more power of reach into our community. And the constant is that 5,000 to 6,000 people come in here every month and they don't know diddly about what dangers flood can be in this valley. So on behalf of the agency, we thank the media here. and certainly appreciate the support you've given us in the past and look forward to in the future.
As far as what we do is our information from you to go out to everybody else is very important. You can see the crawl at the bottom of the screen where there's a flash flood warning, a flash flood watch. You can see us do quick cut-ins in the programming letting you know what's going on, because needs to be taken seriously. We have to get the information out, and we have to work in conjunction with everybody, the Weather Service, the Flood Control District, and other forecasters to let everybody know the dangers that's going on at that moment because people's lives are at stake.
With the increasing growth in population and the constantly changing landscape of Southern Nevada, the district's news conference and dedication of the Tropicana and Flamingo Washes project is another example of the district's proactive work to keep you safe from flooding. We'll be back with more right after this.
At a time when Southern Nevada needs to be water smart, did you know taking your car to a car wash saves not only gallons of water, but also traps all that dirt and other nasty pollutants? Washing your car in the driveway allows grease, soap, and oil to flow down the street into storm drains and onto Lake Mead, our primary source for drinking water. Do your part, wash smart, a clean car and a cleaner environment. This message brought to you by the Stormwater Quality Management Committee, a program of the Regional Flood Control District.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
I'm Clark County Commissioner Bruce Woodbury, and you're watching the Flood Channel.
Is there a specific time of day that most thunderstorms occur?
Thunderstorms are more likely to occur at the hottest, most humid part of the day, usually the afternoon or evening. Thunderstorms happen worldwide at any time of the day, and on any given day, 1,800 thunderstorms are happening worldwide. Welcome back to the Flood Channel. If you're one of those 6,000 new residents that move to the valley every month, you might be thinking, flooding in the desert? What are they talking about? But when those heavy rains fall on our hard desert soil, flooding can happen in just minutes. The people who represent you in Washington, D.C. have seen firsthand just how devastating storms can be.
Having grown up in Nevada and seeing obviously the devastation of flash flooding that can occur in southern end of the state, some people don't realize that it occurs across the state. Just in the late 90s, there was a flash flood that occurred in Carson City. I think Carson Street was under a foot or so of water, but we lived right on the canyon, at the end of the canyon where it came down our road, Long Street, and it just emptied into Carson City. Ultimately, of course, it ends up in Carson River, but it had to go through the middle of town. So yeah, there's a lot of flash flooding that goes around, occurs at both ends of the states.
I remember back in high school, and the day after a big flood, flash flood in Las Vegas, the Caesars Palace parking lot was completely flooded, and a friend of mine had loaned his car to somebody, and on the front page of the Review Journal the next day was his car in a picture floating in the Caesars Palace parking lot, and that was typical of what used to happen a lot in the Las Vegas Valley. Because of all of the flood control projects that have gone on, we have very little damage that is done to property these days, and obviously to life. As long as people pay attention, we continue to build these flood control projects. People will be able to live there in the midst of flash floods without having any problems.
First of all, my mother was afraid, when it lightning, thunder, and she was so afraid, of course. So if she's afraid, we're afraid. I used to look up there, and as we call it, Timber Mountain. Now I hope that rain doesn't get here. Now I just, when I'm out in my home in Searchlight, I'm hoping it gets here. But in those days I didn't. But I can remember in Searchlight, we call them cloud bursts, and we would go out after the rain stopped and watch the stuff come down the washes, as we called them, and see if anything washed down that was worthwhile. And maybe it's my child's mind, but I can remember it rained so hard you could hardly see, and sometimes it would wash cars down the old Nipton Road. Yeah, I remember flash floods.
Now, I came from upstate New York, and we moved to Las Vegas when I was about 12 years old. I had never seen rain like this, and it started instantaneously, and within the course of a few minutes, the streets that I had been playing on just a few minutes earlier became huge flood channels. They might as well have been muddy rivers that were the velocity and the force of these waters literally washed people away, washed cars away. That is how fast something like that happens.
I've been living in Nevada for close to 30 years, so I can remember a number of floods that have happened in our community. And I was city councilman and mayor of Boulder City, and we've had a couple major floods in Boulder City through the years, in the early 80s and the late 80s. And thanks to Flood Control District, of course, we have now a state-of-the-art flood control channel in Boulder City. Even in the Las Vegas Valley, I can remember when Sunset Road wasn't a 4-lane, 6-lane, high-speed traffic corridor. It was a 2-lane road, and there was a number of washes. People think we live in a desert. Why do we have to worry about high water? So my kids, it was always a primary part of understanding what could happen from nature. So we want to make sure our families keep teaching our kids in the schools. It's important to remind people because we really do take a lot of things for granted. We have some of the best flood control channels in the country, but there's always this nature thing. You're not sure what's going to happen, so we have to keep educating our community.
The district wants to thank our Washington delegation for working together to solve problems like flooding back here in the great state of Nevada. And we'll be back with more on the Flood Channel right after this.
Whenever you come to water in a roadway, think. If you think you can get across, you can't. If you think driving fast will get you through it, it won't. If you think it's not that deep, it is. Whenever you come to water, think. Then think again.
A reminder from the Clark County Regional Flood Control District. Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
Hi, I'm David Brenner and you're watching the Flood Channel. Is that rain?
Did you know that more people die in flash floods each year than any other natural disaster? And most of those were caused by unsuccessful attempts to drive through floodwater. For the past several years, the district has worked to communicate flood safety using some unique and eye-catching messages. Carrie Ann brings us a story.
Around the valley, you'll see a lot of billboards with a lot of different messages. Using those billboards is one way that the Flood District is getting the word out about flood safety. Our annual billboard license plate contest calls for personalized license plate messages designed to remind motorists about the dangers of flooding. The contest not only gets out an important message, but gets the community involved. The winning license plate is posted on billboards around the valley.
I came up with the slogan because I was trying to think of something that a lot of people associate with Las Vegas, and gambling, of course, is number one. It just popped into my head. As soon as I heard the contest on the radio, every time I think of something or part of something, I'd write it down, and then I'd just keep working on it whenever something would pop into my head, and after a few days, I just submitted a few entries.
The message of flood safety is important not only to our English-speaking residents, but our Spanish residents as well. More than a quarter of our population is Hispanic, so this year the Regional Flood Control District made it a priority to open the billboard contest to our Spanish-speaking viewers. Javier Gonzalez submitted the winning entry H2O Aquí, which translated means there's water here. Getting that message of flood safety out to all Southern Nevada residents will continue to be a top priority for the Flood District.
To see that billboard, it's just awesome. The feeling to see my idea that big and where everybody can see it, and that you guys thought it was creative enough to put it up. But it's just it's really exciting for me, especially being an advertising major. I think it's awesome because I'm native Las Vegan here, and I've seen a lot of people drown and get washed away, and year after year they continue to go in the floodwaters. And if it saves just one life, it's worth it.
Past winning messages like Too Deep for You, You Know Better, and this year's winner, Bad Gamble, are all examples of how the contest is raising awareness about flood safety. This year's winning billboard in English will be posted here at the corner of Grand Central and Charleston. The Spanish billboard will go up at Nellis and Lake Mead. These were 2 of more than 1,100 English and 26 Spanish messages submitted on the Flood District's website. Betty?
This year's contest was our most successful ever. Congratulations to our flood savvy winners, and a huge thank you to everyone who sent us your ideas. We'll be back right after the break.
Hi, I'm Fox 5 meteorologist Aaron Peck, and I'm standing in a flood channel. You've probably seen plenty of these flood channels across the county.
Most of the year they're dry, but when it rains here, these channels fill with water real fast. In fact, during a heavy rainstorm, water in a channel like this can rise several feet in just minutes. The same can be true for floodwaters on roadways.
Flash floods happen real quick in the desert, but they can also end real quick. So be smart and be patient. Stay out of the floodwaters and wait out the storm.
Don't press your luck. Steer clear of floodwater.
Hi, we're Station 21 Heavy Rescue, and you're watching the Flood Channel.
Welcome back to the Flood Channel. When you look around at the desert we live in, it's hard to believe that this was once a place where explorers, scouts, Native Americans, and eventually residents moved to, ironically, for water. However, the word Las Vegas translates in Spanish to the meadows. Thousands of years ago, underground springs surfaced from underneath the desert floor, creating lush grassy meadows like the ones you see here at the Springs Preserve.
Springs Preserve was created really for the community as a place that they could commemorate Las Vegas history and then have a place to come to gather, to have fun, to learn, to enjoy concerts, and to learn about sustainability for the future. The significance of the Springs Preserve to the valley is that there's so much dynamic history here that most people don't know about, especially when we have so many new residents that move in every single month. We go back 5,000 years, which most people are not aware of. And so to be able to share that history and how we came about and how this amazing dynamic community really came to be only in really a short period of time is fascinating to people who visit the Springs Preserve. It's important to know that this used to be a very lush meadowland with a lot of water. Over the years, that water has dried up, the aquifers have dried up, and now we find ourselves in a situation where we really need to think about sustainable living, about drought-tolerant landscaping, about recycling, about all of the things that are good for our earth so that we can be good stewards of the earth. We have gotten such a wonderful reaction from our visitors and especially from the community. We hear comments like this is the new cultural place. Finally, Las Vegas has a cultural place that they can come and gather and learn about Las Vegas history and just have a good time. In the fall, we'll have concerts in our outdoor amphitheater, which will be just a wonderful way to bring the community together. And we'll have classes, educational classes that focus on the environment, Tai Chi and yoga in the gardens, just a lot of fun things to bring the community together. I am so excited personally. I'm a native Las Vegan and my father is as well. So to have a facility like this open that celebrates Las Vegas's dynamic history just makes me very proud, and everybody that's been a part of it, including many community people who have been a part of this as well, and our donors who've helped to fund this have been very excited about this project. We have things for all ages. For children, we have a great outdoor children's playground that has gigantic replicas of a woolly mammoth, a peregrine falcon, a sidewinder snake. The kids love to play on it. And there are exhibits throughout the facility as well that kids can interact with. For adults, it's a little bit of the same. It's a bit of an adult playground right here in the gardens, and also many exhibits that are geared towards the adults that deal with the geology of the land, and education about recycling and sustainable living. So there's really something for everyone here. We have got a living collection that features desert animals, of desert Mojave animals, including a gray fox, cottontail rabbits, Gila monsters, and these are actually live animals that the kids can come out and interact with and learn at the same time about how they adapt to the desert environment and why they're here and the types of shelter that they require, the types of foods that they require. Kids love it. They get very excited about the living collections.
The primary mission of the Springs Preserve is to educate people about our local history and teach conservation of our natural resources. Botanical gardens, walking trails, museums, and galleries, along with an incredible flash flood demonstration, bring together important facts about our past and future and reinforce the district's message of flood safety.
Well, flash floods are a very important event happening in the valley and throughout southern Nevada on a more or less regular basis. It's really important for the animals and the plants. It's one of the rare times they get water. It's really the source of life out here in the valley. At the same time, it's something that can be very dangerous to people. Every year there are people that are injured or that even die in flash floods. So we wanted to have an exhibit that would, show that they really have